Depths of the sea, as well as space, are probed by scientists, but the Antarctic is the only ocean that extends around the Earth, flowing into the three major oceans, Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian.
Beyond the South Pole, mapped 1/3 million square miles, never before seen by man.
Our eastern group mapped 3,000 miles of phantom coast and charted 40,000 square miles of coastal ocean areas hitherto unknown.
Our western group, flying hundreds of air hours, mapped the 4,000-mile Sunset Coast, made the amazing discovery of warm land in Antarctica.
In all, the expedition explored more than 1.5 million square miles. Landing craft worked frantically to loosen the ice around the ships so propellers may turn without shearing off. One by one, the ships are cleared, get underway. Byrd remains behind with 197 volunteers and grave problems. His most important exploration flights will now lack the powerful directional radio of the Mount Olympus. To get his men out, he must hope the icebreaker can crash her way back in time. Otherwise, he and his men will be frozen in for the 9 sunless months of the dark, treacherous Antarctic winter. Maroon.
Now, the North Pole is the center of a deep ocean, whereas the South Pole is the center of a high plateau which averages 7,000 or 8,000 feet in altitude. Many species of flowers.
7,000 or 8,000 feet in altitude. So they're over 1.5 miles on average. And he describes it as a plateau. So to me, that makes me think like coastline. Plateau makes me think of an ice wall. From everything I've heard, there's just limited spots where they can even get there. You judge for yourself.
Can be found at Etah, whereas around the South Pole, except for some very primitive plants, there's no life whatever beyond the edge of the continent. It is cold and silent, and there are no Eskimos. It is too cold for human beings to live there permanently. In fact, the only permanent resident is the emperor penguin, and he doesn't go beyond the edge of the continent. This great difference is due to the fact that the Antarctic continent is in the clutches of an ice age, such that existed many thousands of years ago at the top of the world. Because of this ice age, the Antarctic averages at least 30 or 40 degrees colder than the Arctic.
30 averages, 30 to 40 degrees colder. Okay, why would it be that extreme difference if it's only a tilt? You know, if everything at the top of a globe pretty much mirrors itself to the bottom of the globe, then why the extreme 30 to 40 degree average colder temperatures when in the winter, in the southern hemisphere's winter, we are between 3 and 4 million miles closer to the sun. So we're closer to the sun during the southern hemisphere here winter, but it's extremely colder. Doesn't make sense to me. Now listen to this clip, okay? They're talking about he's talking about the temperature. Then he goes on to say, you know, he's got to get out of there before the long winter, okay? Negative 65 degrees, okay? He talks about his breath freezing. Now, the sun has supposedly been in the sky, according to what they say today. It's been in the sky for 6 months. So it's been above the horizon for 6 months, but the temperature is negative 65 degrees. That's horse shit, okay? They attribute seasons to the angle of the sun, okay? But here in Florida, summertime, at 9:30, 10:30 in the morning, when the sun is about 23 degrees, it's already got the steel on the ground so hot you need gloves to pick it up, okay? And shit's growing like crazy. How could there be no plant life, no trees, no nothing, with a 24-hour sun 6 months, okay? I mean, something's not right. Anybody who doesn't see a contradiction is blinded and doesn't want to see it, to put it kindly.
The cold does queer things. When the temperature is 65 degrees below zero or colder, your breath freezes. And now it is time for my friends to leave for Little America, and for me to begin my vigil alone in the shadow of the South Pole. The long winter night is very close now.
The long winter night. So the sun was just in the sky for 6 months. And we're supposedly 3.5 million miles closer to the sun during them 6 months. But you got the coldest temperatures on Earth averaging 30 to 40 degrees lower than the North Pole. And so cold that your breath freezes. So do the math.
Antarctica. If we want to learn something about that weather, this is the place to begin. But at first glance, the job seems impossible. Long-range forecasts require a chain of weather stations which cover the continent. These must be manned, supplied, and kept up through the long winter night. Today we have only a handful of men and stations to do the job. But to these, we have added an automatic nuclear-powered weather station. This station uses a radioisotope-fueled generator, SNAP 7C, designed and built by the Martin Company's nuclear division as its power supply. It is untended, runs for years without upkeep, and broadcasts regular weather reports every 6 hours. A similar nuclear-powered station has been broadcasting from the Arctic Circle since August of 1961.
So they got nuclear power plants down in Antarctica. They're keeping it off limits. Make you scoop up your own shit if you have the money to get through the red tape. But they say for the environment. But they have nuclear power plants. And they say that there's one in the Arctic. Been running since 1961. Unmanned, unattended. So why don't we have these things everywhere? They must not be bad for the environment.
And what's going on down there? It says, under the leadership of Dr. Thomas C. Poulter, second in command, a tractor party this afternoon was making ready for a dash to Admiral Byrd's advance base. He has just been contacted on the radio, but doggedly...
This is where Richard Byrd got caught in a bunker, by his words, for 9 months of darkness. So they said twice. One time the commentator states it, and then another time Richard Byrd states it. Where this is where he was caught stuck in the bunker for 9 months of darkness. Okay, now I've heard on here, I haven't heard once, okay, through any of these films about 6 months of daylight. But, you know, maybe it's in here somewhere. It wouldn't surprise me. But I've heard about 5 months of darkness, 7 months of darkness, 9 months of darkness. Okay, now, so think about that. It would make sense if if Antarctica surrounds us, okay, and it goes out, God knows how far, and the further you went, the more darkness you would have. Okay, so you could have places where you went and you got 5 months of darkness. 7 months, 6 months, one to add in there, 7 months, okay? And if you went far enough, even 9 months, which is probably about as far as they can go. And if that's where the record temperature was recorded, it's like crazy low, lower than any of the other places on our, anywhere on Earth. So, I mean, they think, you know, there's so many cuts in this. When they start talking about this shit, it's just cut after cut after cut. Like, they don't think we can handle the truth. So, like, we're children, you know, they don't want us, the children, knowing the truth. We can't handle the truth. Whatever.
We reached the last outpost of civilization, Dunedin, New Zealand, the jumping off place for the South Pole. I flew my flag from the Rupert. We were early in the season and had several weeks to spare. It would probably be a month before the ice of the Ross Sea would open up enough to get through to Little America. So when we left New Zealand, we did not go straight south to Little America, but to the southeastward for an enormous unexplored area that I had been wanting to get into for many years. And here was the chance at last.
So, but when they go to talk about it, they cut it. Like, right when they go to talk about the unknown area and the directions and all that stuff, they cut it. Anybody who wants to see these old clips, it's Periscope Films on YouTube. And they do a lot of that. They'll cut it and go to something different. Right in the middle of him talking about the unknown. It pisses me off.
To get to that area, we had to cross the shrieking, roaring latitude of 60 degrees. Soon we hit the bad belt. Cold, an ice mass high came floating by. These bergs were the first sentinels of the unknown. 300 years explorers had. When we reached the center of the Devil's Great.
See how they do that? He's talking about the unknown, and they just cut and go to a different clip. Let's check it out.
By. These bergs were the first sentinels of the unknown. 300 years explorers had. When we reached the center of the Devil's Graveyard.
Man, that pisses me off. They do a lot of that, but there's still a lot of information, conflicting information, in my opinion.